Okay,
Hi,
you're live.
I think we're live. So today everybody's been asking about shock limiters and how to rebuild shocks. So I figured we'd do a quick live stream about that. Here we have stock Traxxas Slash modified to be a mud boss. You can see just how much ground clearance this slash has and how little this one has. This one's about almost 3.5 inches of ground clearance. This one's only about 2, so it's been lowered an inch. That's what shock limiters can do to you. I know for a lot of you guys, shock limiters are probably pretty obvious. We use them all the time. But for some people new to the hobby, just getting into it, or but I've seen a lot of people that are just bashing their slash and want to make a little bit better handling. They know nothing about them. So let's move on and talk about that. And here are shock limiters. Our camera person might want to get a little closer. What you can do, just about anything can be a shock limiter. But for Mud Boss Racing, we have a lot of vendors out there selling shock limiters from KHD, Shoemaker, Racing Dots, Mob Racing. So if you look online, you can find them. But if not, you can make it just about anything into a shock limiter. You can use fuel line, and even, you know, if you just want to do a little bit of a 1/4 inch. Hi, kitty. Got a kitty in the camera. But, you know, you'll find inside your Traxxas Slash kit, these little things are not shock limiters, but they can be used for it. They're just a spare part. So, you know, if you want to fool with it, put these in there about a 1/4 inch. The most important thing with shock limiters is you don't want it to obscure the hole of the piston, and you want it to be able to keep the piston moving freely up, the shaft moving freely up and down. So that's about it. Shock limiters usually come in sizes of 1/2 inch, 2/10 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/100th of an inch, and 5/1000th of an inch. And when you get a setup from somebody, usually they'll say, you know, put in 0.55 inches of limiter. So that's what they are. Little pieces of 3D clear plastic. You can make your own if you want to. So what we're going to do today.
What was that one again?
What is this one?
Yeah.
This is just a little spare part that comes in the Traxxas Slash kit. It's
Oh,
used in
okay.
some other kits. You can use it as a shock limiter. It's about a 1/4 inch. You could just look at this. That's how long rear Traxxas Slash shock is. Oh, great, and we just tried. You could just put that in there, like we could put this one on, right through there. Make sure it doesn't, you want to get a close up, obscure the holes of the piston. That's the most important thing. If you're obscuring the holes of the piston, you're not moving oil. Put it in there. You can find the hole. Come on. There we go. And there you go. Shock's a lot less travel. So that will help lower your car already. So what we're going to do here is start with 2 of these shocks and rebuild them. This one here is still all together. For the most part, I've taken the springs off it, drained the oil, so taken the diaphragm out, all that fun stuff. Before you do it, one thing you want to do is buy a new set of diaphragms, because these things, after running them, won't be any good. And you'll need shock oil of different weights. If you're just rebuilding a stock Traxxas Slash shock, 30 weight oil will be fine. So, and you maybe, especially for us oval racers, every shock has its own purpose. A right rear, right front and left front. All those shocks will probably have different weight oil in it and a different limiter, so you really don't want to mess them up. So you maybe want to create a little block of wood or something like that where you can mark them and make sure you keep them all organized. You don't want to be putting your left front shock on where your right front goes, because that's not going to be good for you. So first off, get to the shock. Now that it's been cleaned, we need to get the end off. Now they do sell a fancy shock shaft tool, but if you don't have one, best thing to do, thin pliers, grab it near the end, just above the hyme end. Do not let the shock shaft slip, because you don't want to cause any scratching or marring of the shock shaft. Unscrew the end. And when you're rebuilding front and back shocks, these hyme ends are different. The rear ones will have, take a close-up look, this huge flat area that goes against the A-arm. The front small, that's where the button head bolt will go through. Front ones, both ends are small. So try not to mix those up. All right, so let's pull out the shock shaft. It's already got limiters in it. Pull those off. Clean the shock shaft of any oil. Now, one thing you might want to do is either soak them in simple green, use brake fluid, just to get rid of all that residual oil, but since we're just doing this down and dirty, we're just going to stick this in there. Now, you know, if you've had any shock leaks or anything like that, you're going to have to remove this end, replace the O-rings and seals down there, and that will keep it from leaking. Usually they don't go bad. So for this shock, now the shock shaft out, and you will see, this is a right front shock. This is the difference between rear shock, front shock. So the shaft is a lot longer. One thing you want to make sure of, your shock shafts are straight. You do not want to have a bent shock shaft. So get straight edges, roll them on your table. Just make sure like there's no gaps or anything like that, because sometimes they do get small bends in them, barely noticeable, and it's not going to give you the handling that you want. Most of the time they're just bent like a pretzel. All right, so what do we got to do? We got to put the shock together. We're going to do this one nice and easy. This one here, I marked on the shock with a marker which one it is. It's right rear. We're going to put 70 weight oil in it, and it's got to have a 2-hole piston. This one, we're lucky, already has a 2-hole piston, so that makes our life easier. For this setup, we have to put in 3/4 of an inch of limiter. So that'll be a 1/2 inch right here, green 1/2 inch, 0.2 red. So that's 0.75. And then we need the 5,000. So let's put the smaller one on first, next to smallest, and then finally the largest. There you go. Now, before put it back together, we're going to dump our oil in. We're gonna pre-fill it. Put your finger on the bottom hole so it doesn't leak out. We're gonna fill the shock about halfway. That's a little more than halfway, so it's gonna leak out. And we're gonna drop shock shaft and limiters right in, and we're gonna make a big mess here. Big oily mess. I wonder if something is not right with what's on. I'm rebuilding these shocks for one of my buddies, so it's quite possible there might be some damage to this thing. Alright, it seems to be going well. Let's wipe off all that extra stuff. That's no good. Right. Make sure it moves freely, and now we got to bleed the shock. Usually you just do this manually. Just go up and down slowly. Don't let the piston go more than a couple millimeters from the top. We do not want to get the piston out of the oil because it's just going to suck more air in. up slowly, pull it down slowly. But we have a fancy tool for this one. This is a Tamiya shock vacuum. You don't need this, but if you're dealing with heavyweight oils, it's very helpful if you have a heavyweight oil, a lot of limiters, and single hole pistons, because sometimes it takes forever to get the oil out of the air out of the oil. You can just leave it sit for an hour or so as the oil works its way up, but this makes it a lot faster. Definitely something you don't need to have, but it can be nice. On the other shock that we're going to do is going to be a lightweight one, so we'll just bleed that manually. So for this, put the shock in there, put the cap on, put the pump on, and just start pumping. It sucks and sucks and sucks and sucks and sucks and sucks and sucks. All right, so well, look at that. Look at that thing bubble. So after just manually bleeding, there's still a lot of air in there. This is why you're dealing with heavyweight oils, a lot of limiters. It's nice to use something like this. All right, now that it's kind of calmed down, come closer. Listen to this neat sound. Ooh.
Like a
You
soda.
open it up. Like the shock oil can go flinging out of there, so just open it up real slowly if you're going to do it. We're going to do it one more time. Yeah, I know, that sounds like something fun, don't it? All right, we still got a little bit.
Something.
Sounds like something. So, you know, we still had a few bubbles coming up, but that's not a big deal at this point. They're just about gone. So you can see there's no action going on. It's all pretty stable. All right, there we go. She's done. And as you can see, now the oil is about just a millimeter underneath, so that's good. So now what we're gonna do is put our diaphragm on. In order to do that, push the shock shaft up. Don't get it out of the oil, just push it up about this far, so it's about a millimeter or so underneath the oil.
Diaphragm and pumping. And
Yes, it's all very perverted. So what we're gonna do, you have to be very careful with this part because you don't want to spill the oil all over, and you don't want to get a lot of air stuck in there, because extra air in there, it's going to mean you're going to have some rebound in the shock, and we don't want to have rebound in these shocks. And I'll tell you about that then. Just take your diaphragm, put it on at about a 45, stick it down. As you can see, it doesn't really want to stick. Let's try a better diaphragm. Down, give it a tap. She's going down just a little. Pull the shaft down just a little bit, because that will actually start to suck it down just a little.
the shaft.
Put your yes, the shaft. I understand why Kyle gets silly now. Push it up just a little bit. Put your finger on top. Don't let it come flying off. This is the tricky part right here. We're going to put the shock top on. You don't wanna move this out of place. You want to get this on top, because you don't want the diaphragm to go up into the shock. You want it to stay on the shock. You want the diaphragm. You want the shock top to hold it down on the body. So we're going to put it down. Get it in there straight. Don't go too crazy. Let it, yep. See, that's the problem. This is where it gets hard. We're gonna have to try something.
No, it came out.
Came out. Let's pull down on that. All right. Where is?
performing surgery.
It is. Now, for shocks, how often do you rebuild them? And if you're just bashing, you're only going to rebuild them like if you want to add limiters to it because you know you want to get a little bit better handling. You don't want to go to a low CG chassis. For racing, some people rebuild their shocks after every race day. Other people once a week. Most people about once a month or so. I do about once a month. So, but you got to get on your own schedule, and it's also dependent on how hard you're using this car. And you always got to check the shock, make sure it's not leaking or anything like that. I mean, if you see a leak, definitely got to rebuild it. If you bend a shaft, definitely got to rebuild it. You're going to try to turn a sev up, you know, obviously got to rebuild it. So let's try this one more time here. Put it on there. 45, yeah, this one fits a lot better. Hold it there, just pull down just slightly. Well, that was fun. I spend more time dropping things and picking them up than actually working half the time. So, this one on, do not put it sideways, just straight. Straight on. Straight on. Straight. Of course, because when you put it on sideways, this is what happens. So back on
You're losing half the oil.
What's that?
You're losing half the oil.
No, there's still plenty of oil.
Oh.
Don't say that. Just let her have a fit. Yes, so these are for you. There we go. Now she's on there. Alright. So, remember when I told you about rebound about, I don't know, a minute ago? Pull your shock out. See how smooth it works. The idea is, if you have rebound in the shock, you're going to push it in, and sometimes they'll just pop out by themselves. You don't want that. You want to be able to push it in and pull it out and just have it nice and smooth. You also don't want to hear any squishing sounds inside. So if you hear squishing, that's no good. Take it apart, do it again. You got air in there somewhere. So there you go. This one feels all right. So after that, we're going to get the right end, put it on there. Usually you can start it by hand. Use your shock tool, or if you're cheap like I am, just use these pliers. Make sure you hold it just above the threads and don't let things turn, because you don't want to mar the shaft. Any scratches on the shaft will make it harder, make things more difficult. It will cause some friction. You also want to check with your pistons. Make sure there's no burrs on the edge or anything like that. So there we go. That's a shock. I'll put the spring on. Make sure you get the right spring, which this is a rear. Put this on. Shock collar thing.
Shock collar.
Shock collar. Shock collar.
Still getting kinky here.
It's a kinky process. Pop her on. There you go. You got a shock. There you go. We'll do one more here quick. We're gonna do, let's see. We're gonna do this right front, because we gotta change the piston. So if you need to change piston, take a tiny screwdriver here. Take it, put it in that E-clip, just pry it up. There you go. And it's really good to have one with a magnet, because then it'll just stick right to it. Set that aside. Right there. This one needs to now have a 3-hole. So we're going to pick up this shock piston here and see that's a 2-hole. We're going to pick up this one here. It's a 3-hole, eh? It's got 3 holes.
3 holes.
3 holes are better than 2.
Oh my god. Now he's getting kinky.
All right. Here we go. Put the E-clip back on there loosely. We're going to have nothing I need. So This is, needle nose works better for this, but you know, do whatever. Just, you know.
Whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works. Just put it down. Make sure it's in the groove. Snap it in there. And there you go. You now put a shock piston on a shock shaft. As always, check the shock shaft. Make sure it's cool, not bent, anything like that. If it is, throw it out. Get another one. Go to your hobby shop. Buy shock shafts. Let's see. This is a right front. Okay, let's get our limiters. So we got that. And we need another. I keep all my limiters in a little box here, and they're all separated out by size. So put it in there.
You basically do it the same way.
Yep, same way. Smallest to largest. Get this. We're done with that oil, so we're gonna get the lighter weight oil. This one, show you how to do bleeding by hand.
Two different kind of oils.
Although I have lots and lots of oils. I collect oil. Everything needs to be oiled and lubricated.
But why two different types of oil?
One's lighter and one's heavier. Heavier weight oils will be slower acting with a slower, the piston will go up slower, and it'll also make it stiffer. So it'll be harder to yes, stiffer. It will make it harder to compress the spring. The lighter weight ones will react a lot faster, and it'll make it easier to compress. So we do that for handling. I mean, shock oil is the majority of your tuning. Like, you know, I always figure if you're putting in, you know, those little collars on your shocks, like these ones here for tuning, you know, your little 12 millimeter and whatever other side that is, that if you're putting in on your right rear too, that's just emergency purposes, and that probably means you got too light a weight of shock oil, so you might, you know, maybe try a different position on the A-arm for mounting your shock, or just go for a heavier oil. So, but you know, heavier oils do slow down the reaction time, so you know, it's always a balance. It's always a pain in the ass, really. So okay, we got this one. I'm gonna get out the diaphragm preemptively. No, we can't because my hands are full. So shaft in. Shaft. Pull it through. Actually, halfway filled it up. Oh, look at that. So what we want to do is, you can see the bubbles. I hope you can see the bubbles. Can you see the bubbles on that side? I can't see. So we're gonna slowly work it up and down. Whatever you do, do not push it all the way up out of there like that, because you're just bringing in more air. You don't want more air. See all that little tiny air bubbles? Yeah, push it up and out a little bit. This one actually has a little too much oil. No, we're not going to do that. This one in the machine. We're going to show you how to do it manually.
Oh, okay.
So there we go. That's about 2 millimeters below. Let's just push it up and down. Sometimes I like to just push it, hold it on the edge, and just let the bubbles rise to the top, and just, you know, just let them pop. Just you know, just nudge them out. No. Come on, bubble. Hold it down slow. Oh, that's it. Nice and slow. Oh, pull that out, baby.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I didn't put it back in. Oh yeah, there you go. Oh, there you go. So she's looking good. She's looking good. So we're gonna put this right there in there. This is the right front. We're gonna put it in the appropriate spot, and then we're gonna put a diaphragm. I probably should put the diaphragm in first. I mean, that prevents unwanted pregnancy. So we're gonna do the same thing, 45 degree, kind of push it down. Try to not get a lot of air trap between the oil and the diaphragm. You want to just kind of push it out. And now it's not quite there. So there we go. Push it out. A little squishy with a little squirt. People like when things squirt. pretty sure this is probably one of Ron's dime bags. This one's got an old. See, this is, you know, what you don't. Does it smell like? Does it smell like something?
No, it just smells like
So we're gonna pull
oil.
this old diaphragm out, and you can see the difference. We'll show you the difference between new versus old. So here's a nice new fresh one. There's an older one. You can see how it gets kind of blown out. How it's kind of old here on my left side, new on my right side. You can see how this one's a little blown out. You can see there's a little bit more lip on it on the new one, a little less on there. It's just stretched out from being pushed up and down repeatedly thousands of times. It's like an old angry hooker. So get a new hooker. Put the top on, same as before. Try to get it on there nice and straight. Try to feel those threads. Feel them. There you go. No, yeah, that didn't work.
Popped off.
That's, you know,
It's a faulty diaphragm. Oh
not
no.
faulty. It's not operator's fault. We're gonna do it again. We're gonna do this again. One more time. Push it down. Just don't push hard. You don't want to pop your diaphragm. Things will escape. Okay, there we go. Oh, it got crooked. There you go. 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 All right, let's wipe it clean. Wipe it clean. All right, now we're going to see here. Now, one thing too, when you put these together, you're going to make sure, like, hey, nothing's leaking out, right? You don't want things leaking out. So we're going to push it up. It sounds okay. Sounds okay.
What are you listening for?
I'm just listening to see if there's any air in there.
Oh.
Any squishy squishies. So there you go. That's it. Put the end on now. This is a front shock. Remember, this end. This end. No big flat spot on the back. Not like this end. Not like that one. Like this one. Is that on? Sometimes you get lucky, you can put them on by hand. Not this one. Not this one at all. Like, there we go.
It's just thread on.
Just, there you go. That's on. Now, you the rest of your fun crap. Since we're going to be calling this video done after that, I'm going to just make a mess here. Get your springs, your front springs. Put that on. Get your little bottom, shock bottom. Slide that on, and then you got another shock. You got a nice functioning front shock. So that's it. I don't know if there's any questions there. There's probably nobody watching yet, but there'll hopefully be questions later. So watch the video. If you liked it, give it a like. If you didn't like it, I don't care. Maybe if you did like it, maybe look into subscribing. We do a weekly show every Monday night, 7:30, called Talking Shop, where we interview a lot of people on, you know, racing, local racing area. And just, it's basically a comedy show. So like, subscribe, comment, ask questions. We'll get around to them. Give us your feedback. So with that, this show is done. All right. Camera lady, turn it off.
Camera lady is trying to figure it out. Okay, there we go.
All right. Did you get it?